friends, and welcome to the Co-Regulated Canines podcast. I'm Ashley Cipolletti, your host, and I'm on a mission to create more connection. Dogs are really just the starting point. Together, we'll explore how to live with more harmony, ease, and healing so we can show up more as the best version of ourselves, not just for our dogs, but also for our community and our planet too. So grab a coffee and let's dive in. I think a lot of us are walking around so emotionally muted that even natural beauty feels like background noise and goes unnoticed. We scroll past sunsets. We miss the wildlife that is right next to us because we are so focused on looking at our phones. We forget to breathe deeply, and we forget to see what is right in front of us. We forget to hear and pay attention to the noises and the smells that surround us on a daily basis. And we forget to slow down. Even when we're in nature together, so often we're just spent using that time talking, yapping about the next best thing and what we did over the weekend. We're not actually slowing down and attuning to what is right in front of us. But I want to leave you with this. How can we attune to nature or attune to others if we're not attuned to ourselves? And that's what today's episode is going to really be about. I'm going to share some stories about the travels I've had in Africa and Brazil and living in Hawaii, and how those really shaped me to connect with nature and myself and others in a different way that has guided me into the work that I do today. And I promise it'll be relevant about your life too, and how you can tap into this not only in your own life, but how it's relevant to your dog and your dog training outcomes. I know this sounds crazy, but I promise it's connected. All right, let's dive in. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, I grew up in a little suburb in Massachusetts. By no means was I an outdoorsy person. I think like the only hike I ever did was this like little state park next to my house that was completely flat. I don't know if I'd really consider that hiking upon hindsight, but zero outdoorsy experience. We never even really went camping. So I, fresh out of college, moved to Hawaii, sight unseen, to follow a boy and that got deployed there who was in the Navy. And I bought a one-way ticket. I was about like 23, I think, and never looked back. And when I got there, I remember having this big plan of like what we were going to do. And I was going to live with him and it was going to be this like romance novel, right? Wrong. I get there and I had no place to stay. All of those plans fell through. I didn't have a job yet. And the car I was supposed to drive literally lit on fire. I didn't know a single soul here. And my boyfriend at the time got deployed in about a week or two after my arrival, which was unexpected. So I had, as you can imagine, a lot of anxiety upon arrival. And I didn't have any really travel experience prior to that. So this was really out of my comfort zone. I'm on the other end of basically almost the world. And through that, I remember sobbing on the phone, having a total meltdown, not knowing how I was going to get through it. I was like, I don't have any support system out here, right? And I just remember like going on my first hike while my boyfriend was still there and being so overwhelmed by it. I was like, oh my God, there's so much like red dirt. It was getting everywhere. There was bugs. It was a really long hike. I like felt like I couldn't breathe doing the hike. And there was a part with a rope that you have to like go like climb down and climb up. I thought it was so dangerous. It's so just irresponsible. I was like, why are we doing this? This isn't like, Massachusetts. It felt like it wasn't America, so cringeworthy looking back. And I was just totally not about it. We finished the hike. I didn't even like it. I was like, I'm never doing that again. Like, wasn't fun. No thanks. I'm all set. And then my ex ended up deploying, what have you. And so in my moments by myself, I had to change something. I was like, I don't know a soul. I don't have a dime. I have no plan. And I just felt really dysregulated. So I made a little mini goal of exploring and going to a beach every day. And I was too scared to go in the water because the waves looked a lot bigger than they did in Massachusetts. And I didn't have any friends to go with me in case I drowned. And there wasn't lifeguards where I was. So I just went to the beach and observed. And I watched all the people surfing and swimming and the birds and the sunrises and the sunsets, and started to really cultivate almost the sense of awe and wonder and just observing the water and observing the beach. And one day I felt called to go in, and I went in the water, and it just felt magical. Like, it didn't feel as scary as I had thought it would or how it did before I was ready. I felt like it was calling to me to go in. And I remember kind of watching how other people were interacting with the water and the waves and mirroring that. And I soon learned, like, you obviously go under the big wave instead of getting crashed by it, and just started to flow a little bit better and more confidently in the water day by day. And I wasn't ready to start like surfing or anything, but it still started to shape and change that connection to nature, as opposed to feeling really, really repelled by it like I did in the beginning. And over time, I got more and more confident. I was like, you know what? I want to create a life that I am craving. So I wanted to make friends. I joined a Facebook group, beach volleyball groups, made friends, and made connections to go hiking with other people. And through those hikes, I didn't want to be like the, lame one. So I just really held it together and kept trying, and was just watching how people more confident in nature were acting and trying to replicate that. And through all these moments that were outside of my comfort zone and in nature, I started to just love it more and more and more. And granted, I still didn't have a job. I had so much uncertainty. I was living with a stranger, and my whole living situation was just always pure chaos, figuring out each month where I was going to live. And I couldn't even talk to my boyfriend because he was deployed and on a submarine underwater. So there was a lot of unknowns there. But the only thing that remained a constant was this grounding through nature. And that little promise I made to myself of every day getting out in nature, whether that was the beach or a hike. And things just started to unfold more and more. And eventually I began to love it and felt confident enough to hike by myself. There was one time I got really lost and had a mini panic attack, thinking I was going to die in the jungle, but I got through it and really learned the importance of mapping out your route before, because I just winged it, being a small town girl from Massachusetts. Didn't know until you know. And picked up surfing, got my shit rocked on the North Shore, thought I was going to drown, but I didn't. And I got up and tried again. And through these experiences, I made another promise to myself to jump through the fear. That was kind of my saying in Hawaii, was just jump through the fear. And I started to become this almost like little mini adrenaline junkie, a little wild child. I started to love it and feel alive through doing that, and felt this insane healing presence anytime I was in nature. And especially in Hawaii, if you've never been, something about that place is arguably one of the most spiritual places in the world. You feel it. And it was this connection of the land and the water. And I started to pick up snorkeling, even scuba diving. And when you're underwater, you get eye to eye with wildlife in a way that you don't on land. They come right up to you, whether or not you want them to. The dolphins, sea turtles, even some rays were doing it. And especially when you learn to scuba dive, you figure out how to control your breath in a way. And it just turns into this really meditative experience when you calm yourself. And it was incredibly impactful. And it just sparked this massive love, this love story for nature from that experience that growing up in Massachusetts, I'm not going to lie, I didn't fully have. I always was intrigued by nature, thought it was cool and liked it, but I was so domesticated that I was I want my creature comforts. I want my air conditioning, my comfy bed, my warm shower. We're going to hang out in nature, but we're going to be drinking and yapping. It was a very different experience than just being out there alone, or being quiet, or just actually being with the wildlife. So that was a profound experience for me. Fast forward through, many ups and downs of life. The one thing that has always anchored me has been nature. And I think Hawaii taught me that. So when I moved to Washington after, devastated to leave Hawaii, I was pretty miserable living there. But anytime I was my happiest was around dogs and hiking those mountains. Like the first time you see Mount Rainier, it brings you to tears. It is one of the most beautiful places on earth. And again, we're going to fast forward. So I had this love of nature that I didn't quite understand. And trying to figure out, like, through just many moves, because if you date a military person, you move a lot. You kind of have to restart and reinvent yourself each time. And I've always known I wanted to make a difference and follow this heart center and soul that I have and just listen to this inner guidance, but never really have had any concrete plan and what the heck I was doing. I've just really listened to this inner wisdom and trusted it. So it brought me to, during COVID, wanting to leave like a sales job that I had. It was like travel sales. Obviously, that did not go well in COVID. Felt a little inauthentic trying to sell it to people who were very scared at a time like that. And looked into like conservation, sustainability, and just trying to figure out like, what's my next step here? Like, or is it social work or is it marketing? And I started taking all these classes and trying to figure out what it was. And I always loved like the idea of healing the planet, but could not get an interview for the life of me. And so I had a background already in mental health. I could always get interviews in that space. So I leaned into that and I was like, I'm still making a difference. So that's kind of what started my social work life. But also, fun fact at this time was me taking those marketing classes started me to create my social media presence, which eventually led to my business. And I didn't know it at the time. That was all about dog behavior, dog training, and helping people live in harmony with their dogs. Because this was a skill set I acquired. And I thought, if I just help one dog in the world, like I could die happy. And let me just practice these digital marketing skills I'm learning to see what happens. So it's funny how life works out like that. Of all these things, these little synchronicities happening at the same time for a reason unbeknownst to us. So we're fast forwarding again, and I had a job in the mental health space, hated my boss. He sucked the soul out of me. And I decided to apply to get my master's in biology with a focus on like wildlife conservation. And kind of figuring out like this experience will tell me what I'm going to specialize in and focus on. And so I got in, and every summer in this program, you go on an international trip to like apply your learnings. So the first trip I had planned was in Brazil, where we were studying the golden lion tamarin, which is this like little, almost like a little orange monkey in the Atlantic forest of Brazil that is a flagship species, meaning they are like the face of an entire like conservation movement. By protecting them, the entire ecosystem benefits, and they're critically endangered for a long time. So we were learning about all of these different systems that were at play for the conservation of this species. That includes like human wildlife conflict issues, like even understanding like illegal pet trading, things about like sustainable farming and urbanization, and so many things. You realize one little like conservation issue is actually like a million because everything has this bigger impact, this bigger effect than we realize. So us even buying products that are not made sustainably impacts the environment, which impacts these species, which impacts the air that we breathe and the water that we drink. And it is all so connected. And it's when you really dive into it, you're like, holy crap. So I thought, wouldn't this be cool if I could apply my dog trainer brain to conservation problems and be like, how do we look at this as a behavior like issue of like meeting human needs and the wildlife or the ecosystem's needs in a creative way? But I didn't know if anyone ever did this or how it could work. So I was like, I don't know, maybe this could be a thing. So I kind of leaned into that. And right before I went to Brazil that summer, I got laid off from the job I hated with my evil boss. So I wasn't that upset, but still scary. And I also got a potential cancer diagnosis. And I was like, what? And then I'm just about to take off by myself to Brazil. I thought I was going to the Amazon. I didn't understand the difference between the Amazon and the Atlantic forest. They're different. But I was like, I'm about to go camping in the Amazon. Just lost my job and now I have cancer and I was going through a breakup. I was like, this is sick. Awesome. Like, thanks, life. And get to Brazil. And I'm just terrified, but it was such a beautiful place and you're just in awe, like traveling. I had no idea I was going to pay for things. I just was like, this is a problem for when I get home. Like, screw it. And eventually when we first get out, like in the actual forest, right? I remember going for a walk by myself in the morning and I heard like rustling in the trees above me. And when you're alone in a foreign country that you know has like a ton of wildlife, I was like, oh my God, I should probably not venture off very far. Like, this is probably dangerous. I didn't even know what would be out there. But it turned out it was a little like troop of capuchin monkeys eating breakfast in the trees. And I just had this beautiful moment by myself at like 6 a.m. watching these monkeys, you know, eating like, I think apples or something, and just observing their behavior and how they were communicating to each other and having this special moment for as long as it was willing to last until those monkeys left. And I came back on cloud nine. I was like, guys, like I saw monkeys. Oh my gosh. And I didn't realize how rare it was to find them. Like, we went the next 2 or 3 days trying to find wildlife. And I had this idea in my head from TV that like you go to these places and it's just abundant wild animals everywhere. Turns out that's not the case. Yes, they're there, but they are very well hidden and camouflaged, and they have different behavioral patterns and trends of where they go. So it's truly a blessing if you run into them, and rare depending on where you are. So I was like, wow, I can't believe I just had that on day one. And I was very, again, dysregulated with what was going on in my personal life. So every morning I made a point to just wake up early, meditate outside in nature, and kind of wing it from there. And I kept having these profound experiences internally of just feeling so connected to this land. Like, it made my heart want to explode. And the people that were there through this organization called AMLD were just unbelievable. The love that they had to protect this forest and for every creature and every plant in it was so contagious. And they helped shape like eyes to see that all these little like bugs and plants and every little detail in this forest mattered and had a story. And even though we're not seeing these monkeys yet, we saw all of these other little things that normally would be like, who cares? It's like a bug and a stick or a plant. And when you see and you feel the love, like I don't know how to explain it. It just all of a sudden shaped how I really felt about all of nature. I was like, every part of this is just as important as the big, cute, fluffy species, you know? And eventually we were about to give up on finding any monkeys. We were like, oh, it's probably not happening. And we got so lucky. We're like tracking them in the forest with like the people who study these animals all the time, and eventually found them. And it was like such an abundant, like multiple groups of these golden lion tamarins. Like, they're so rare to find. All came running down because we were with the monkey mama. We were with Andrea, and she, if you know anything about Brazil, she's very, very widely known there about essentially just observing these monkeys, and they call her the monkey mama because they all have a relationship with her from her just being out there with them and observing. And she knows all the different individuals, their different personalities. It was wild to see. Anyways, so we're out there with her and we're surrounded by these monkeys. And I was just in awe. Like, the whole forest is like an orchestra of their calls and their sounds. And you're like, oh my gosh. And you just feel this like electricity like coming off you. Like, it felt so powerful. And we're like, we're going to be here for as long as this moment is meant to last. And they're coming up close and looking at us. And it was just so cool to see. We could see their babies, and just, it was wild. And I was like, this is what true abundance feels like to me. And that was one of the most profound experiences I had in Brazil. And then coming back home, I remember feeling like, how do I like come back to reality after that? And I remember going for a hike in San Diego and trying to have what I called my Brazil eyes, and noticing the flowers and the bugs and the birds and whatever wildlife presented itself or revealed itself to me on a hike alone. And a really cool thing I noticed started to happen was anytime people on this hike walked through, all of the wildlife scattered. You couldn't see a thing. And I just decided to sit there quietly in this little like nook and just like hang out. And then when people left, all of the wildlife came back, and it was all so connected. There was so much activity and life going on, like this little like drama going on, like no one would even know this because everyone's too busy putting on their music, talking about whatever, going for runs, for a workout, that all the noise they're making is scaring off everything else. And they're missing this like profound awe, connectedness to nature and these stories that are here. And that's a feeling I feel like I chase a lot of, like, I want that feel. Like I think it's the best feeling in the entire world, and it's fleeting. So when you get it, it's powerful. So fast forward the next year in this program, I got placed in a group going to Namibia. We were studying cheetah conservation at CCF, and me and my friend that I met in Brazil, shout out to Jackie, we were placed on the same trip, and we were like, let's extend our travels in Africa together. So we did Botswana, Namibia, and South Africa together. I was there for a month. She was there longer, and she used to live in South Africa and be actually a guide, a walking safari guide. And I am so grateful to the experiences that she has shown me, because she's taught me like how to look at the ground for the stories of the tracks and how fresh they are, where it means how you can like find these animals when you're on foot, how every sound means something, and it can tell you like if it's a warning call, if predators are nearby, if there's water nearby. It just is such a relevant thing to be paying attention with every sense. And then as we were doing a walking safari, I also learned your sense of smell tells you a lot. So as we were in South Africa, I learned that if you smell popcorn, it's the smell of leopard urine. And if you see claw marks on the trees that look a little red, they're most likely just their scent marking as well. So it was wild, where I'm like, this was like a full sensory experience. And when you are on foot doing these as opposed to in a car, it is wildly different. Like, it is scary but amazing, and you are aware of how fragile it is to be alive, and also aware of how special it is. And you can feel vibrations when you are walking on foot. You can feel elephants communicating to one another through vibrations. It's not even a sound you really pick up aside from feeling a vibration in your body. It was wild. And even like seeing like a warthog on foot felt scary, because you're aware, I'm like, that thing could screw you up if they wanted to. We're walking past like buffalo, and I was like, we're walking past the big five, like some of the most dangerous animals like out here. And they just understood their body language and behavior, and they're like, it's fine, like watch. And if you're calm and you know how these animals behave through observation, the fear goes down, but you have this competent respect for them. It's not like, oh, this is just, my pet cat. Like, you are aware. And you're also aware that animals are very well camouflaged, and at any moment, fear or chaos can enter the realm around you and cause the animals around you to panic or feel aroused or like chase. And that's kind of where bad things can happen. But when everybody's calm, it is this shared connectedness to everything around you. And I remember thinking from, TV shows, like, oh, a lot of these animals just are like blood cold, like they're, thirsty killers and whatever. And I saw so much competence socially between species and within species to avoid conflict. Like, I saw numerous rhinos that I've been told just charge first, ask questions later. And they're having these like conversations in this culture within them, and actually not being aggressive and just charging blindly, but they were like flirting. And also some of them were posturing, and they're having just almost like this dance through body language and space, even with other species, like even with an elephant, even with hyena around them, or an oryx. And I'm like, whoa, these animals aren't scared to get right next to like a hyena or a lion drinking water. And they're all reading each other's body language, understanding like the scene, right? And I was like, there's just so much more to the emotional competence of other animals that we do not understand or respect, and almost a culture and like a just ability to communicate with one another. And we think that they don't, or that they don't have emotions. I'm like, you see it, you feel it, you really feel it, especially with the elephants, I will say. And like, I don't know, I just think it's so misunderstood, and we have this language of dominant and alpha and control. I'm like, what I perceived was just like conversations and interactions so similar to our own. And yeah, sometimes we have conflict, and sometimes we have conversations that are, touchy, touch and go. Sometimes we fight, sometimes we don't. But also there's love, and there's, friendships and helping others. And sometimes it's just neutral and you ignore things. And I'm seeing this across all these different species. And when you come across a wild animal like that, you know how special and rare it is, that you hold and cherish that moment for as long as it lasts. You don't rush it. You don't like look to your phone, going to the next best thing like you do at a zoo. You sit there and you know that this is a special moment you share together, and that you have to be aware of your surroundings, because at any moment it can change. And it's also so beautiful. And I was brought to tears numerous times experiencing this. I was like, how lucky am I to be here, to see this with my own eyes while it's here, to learn of the culture, to meet people who are from this land, hear their stories, and not look at it with judgment from a Westerner's eyes, but like really hear them and see different perspectives. It would be so easy to be like, oh, look at these dogs that aren't taken care of, through a traditional Western lens. But then when you really unpack it, you see they're so happy, they're free roaming, they're living life. Like they help people who live there hunt. Like it was just fascinating. All these different things that shifted and shaped new perspectives that I didn't know I needed. Most importantly, just that connection to nature, and how important it is, and how healing it is. Because every time I've gone out in nature in times of so much uncertainty, it has been an anchor. When I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to live, pay rent, I feel like I have no one. And then nature has been that rock and that anchor. And I hope that it can be that rock and anchor for everyone. And I think life has a way of somehow working out, but if you can find ways to ground yourself through these uncertain times, especially now, I think that is crucial. And doing it, I think, alone, sitting there in silence and just existing is such a healing component to it, and connecting. And I was actually watching the Ocean Ramsey documentary the other day on Netflix, and a lot of the experiences I just shared, she was sharing with her experiences with sharks, of this awe, this connection, this invitation, this competence, but curiosity. And not to say, yeah, everybody should be going out there interacting like she is, but she's had millions of hours observing these animals. And that's how you study behaviors, through objective, curious observation, and through spending time with them. And if we're so disconnected from ourselves, and we're so tapped into the phones and all the things, and when we're not ever going out in nature, we're not ever slowing down, how would we observe anything around us? We're not quiet. When you're in the wild, being loud is going to scare everything away. So I don't know. I share this to create curiosity. And I'd love to hear if anyone else, any listeners out there, have similar stories to being in nature. Because when you have one of these wow moments, it is very impactful. And I feel like that feeling helps you realize that there is consciousness in other animals. There's consciousness even in the earth and the plants. You feel it. And when you see that and feel it, you know that that's in your relationship too with your dog. You know that's in your relationship with others. And you start to see life as another connection to yourself. Like you are all connected in one big live being, and you want to nurture it. You're like, if you love yourself, you would want to love the planet and love other animals. Like if you don't love yourself, I think that's reflected in how you treat the planet and how you treat animals. I'm like, that is all reflected back to you. If we're just taking and trying to use everything up, we're going to use everything up till it's dry. And that's going to reflect back on us, where we won't have the resources we need to survive. So not even meaning to be political, but apparently it is a political conversation. But it's really just understanding that it's all of these systems are connected. And when one thing is off, everything else is affected. And the healing that I see that happens even in dogs with behavior issues or not, when they get out in nature more and more and more, so many behavior problems go away without any training. It's like you bring a dog out to like living with more land in nature or more and more decompression walks in nature, and a lot of these issues go away. Most of these behavior problems stem from disconnection from nature. So when you and your dog are just stuck in an apartment, never seeing the sunlight, never being still and interacting with the trees and the birds and all of the life around you, is when anxiety starts fueling and your needs aren't met and you feel depressed. It's like all these things, and your dog is feeling the same way. We're seeing these same mental health struggles that people are having reflected in our pets because they're living similar lifestyles as us, like as captive domesticated animals in our homes. So it is, I think, you can't look at one without looking at the other and big picture. And I truly believe there's multiple ways we can get people to connect more with this feeling. One is, again, attuning to the self and caring for the self more, or tuning to others, caring and doing acts of service, caring for others, nurturing nature, nurturing each other, nurturing your dog, and understanding they have consciousness and emotions and feelings too. And then another is, how do we heal nature? How do we solve these human-wildlife conflict issues and get people to see the consciousness of it all and to take from it respectfully? Or if we want to eat something, there's sustainable hunting as opposed to just like factory consuming and having all this extra that we just waste. So I want to leave you with that and encourage you, if you haven't had this experience yet yourself of this awe and this connection to nature, look around you where you live. Nature is all around us. We are a part of it. And what beauty is around you? Is it maybe a special flower or a tree that you've never really noticed? Is it a bird singing a song that you never noticed before? Is it the smell of something pleasant that you haven't smelt before, or a sound of something that makes you feel loved and realize that there is more love out there around you? So I will leave you with that. And I hope that you have a beautiful rest of your day. And remember that we're all connected and we got to just take care of ourselves and each other. All right, till next time. Thanks for hanging out with me on the Co-Regulated Canines podcast. If you loved this episode, it would mean the world to me if you subscribed, left a review, and shared with a friend. Your support helps more people and their dogs find a little more ease and connection in their lives. Want to dive deeper? Follow me on Instagram at Co-Regulated Canines. That's CO_regulated, the letter K, the number 9, S, or head to www.coregulatedcanines.com for more resources. Until next time, take care of yourself, take care of your pup, and keep building those connections.